Hello, everyone, and good morning. Welcome to our live feed update for August 6th. I'm your host, Taran Armstrong, and I'm here today to update you on everything that happened yesterday on the Big Brother 26 live feeds. It was day 21 in the house, and I'm recovered, luckily, just in time for this update because there's a lot to talk about. We had a veto ceremony. We had all kinds of blow-ups, arguments, things were revealed, confrontations. There's a lot. There's a lot to talk about here. And with me to talk about it all, it was, I think, a punishment for losing Who Wants to Be a Big Brother Millionaire that we stuck her on this update first. It's Sugar Free. How you doing, Sugar Free?
I was doing amazing when you first asked me, which I think was like last week before the HOH even happened. And I was like, sounds great. This has been a slow pitter patter season. I can just dive my little tippy toes in. And then Sunday night, some rumbling started happening. And I went, oh no, my job's going to be hard on Monday. And it was, but we're here. Things happened. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much, Taran. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Yes. Well, we're going to have to get straight into it because there is genuinely, I can't even preview a portion of this because there's too many portions to preview. So we're just going to go straight into this. Just if you are kind of browsing through the updates, this is one to listen to because there's a lot of actually, as Cedric might call it, game-changing information in this update. So
you just know that Corey is furious. His last name is not Turtenberger. Just the wrong day of the week.
Out of furious or grateful?
A little bit of both. A little bit of both. I'm sure he'll chime in tomorrow.
All right. Well, of course, Cedric is the HOH. And I'm just going to set you up here for what the stage needs to be set. Cedric had nominated Angela, Kenny, and Tucker. They basically all volunteered. Tucker then won the veto. He quickly told Rubina that he was maybe going to do something crazy with the veto. She then told some people hey, I'm worried he might not use the veto on himself. But then very quickly he said, no, I'm going to use the veto on myself. I was just throwing that out there. So he's not going to do something crazy is what he's saying, or what he was saying then. He was then pushing for Mackenzie to go up on the block because he wanted the power to be flushed. But then the day before, day 20, he made a pitch to Cedric, and he said, I want Quinn to be backdoored because he has been told about Quinn's power by Kimo, who maybe has a little bit of a crush on Tucker and kind of just let it slip. And so he wants to target Quinn. He thinks that Quinn is the best player in the house. He's got this power. He wants to make this happen. And in order to do so, he made the Shakers Alliance even bigger by making it the Ballers Alliance, as I affectionately called the Ball Boy Alliance. And that included Cam with Cedric and Kenny and, of course, himself. And this Ball Boy Alliance, this Ball Player Alliance, came up with the plan to put Quinn on the block, expose his power, turn the entire house against him, send him out the door before he even has a chance to use it. That was what Tucker wanted to do. However, over the course of the day/night, Cedric talked to a few more of his allies in the Pentagon, in the collective, and eventually determined that it probably wasn't the best idea to make this shot or to take this shot at Quinn. There are too many ways that could fail. And so instead, he decided that the better play was to not take the shot, hold on to the information about Quinn, deal with Quinn later, and in fact, maybe even feed Quinn some information about how Tucker and Kenny pitched against him so that Quinn would have to deal with Tucker and Kenny before he could even think about dealing with them. And that became the plan. And that is where we start the day on day 21.
And it started, and it's not like it started like with like a quick little light breakfast. No, it's like the second the feeds happened, it was like, boom, game, here we go, get strapped in. And it didn't, I don't feel like there was a single stop to the day yesterday. I don't remember a true lull that lasted longer than maybe 30 minutes.
Yeah, pretty much. I did say yesterday I felt like there was a good chance that Cedric would not like follow through on some of this, but that was not the case. Cedric very quickly started telling T'kor, hey, the plan is off. I think you should use the veto on yourself. What he said was, I don't think we have the numbers. You should use the veto on yourself. So he's calling off the plan. T'kor's, oh, but I forgot this part of it. T'kor's not using the veto on himself to orchestrate this plan. He's going to use it on Angela. So in order to call the plan off, Cedric needs to tell T'kor, use the veto on yourself, not Angela, because I'm not putting up Quinn, because I don't think we have the votes to take him out. So that's what he says to T'kor. He says, I don't think we have the votes. You should use the veto on yourself. So T'kor says, yeah, I don't give a we should do it anyway. He's like, yeah, I just don't think we have the numbers. He's like, I don't care about the numbers. I want to do it anyway. And Cedric's like, I don't know what to say here. So that's so like T'kor's like, okay, well, I want to do this anyway. Cedric also explains to Kenny like the plan is off. Kenny agrees we should probably not do it this week. Then it doesn't make sense. And in the meantime, T'kor is just kind of like doing his T'kor thing. He's apparently been holding on to this whole thing where he's mad at Rubina actually for having told people about him saying that he was doing something crazy with the veto. He's going to confront her about that. They have a whole thing. And then in the meantime, Cedric calls a Pentagon meeting. And I'm like, this is actually happening. Like, this is, oh my God. Like, hold on. He calls a Pentagon meeting. It's Quinn up there. It's Brooklyn. He says, I've got game-changing information, game-shattering information. But they have to wait for Cam to come up. So Chelsea gets up there. They're waiting for Cam. They're waiting for Cam. Cam finally arrives. And he's like, so here's the deal. Last night, T'kor comes to us and he says, I want you to put up Quinn. He tells them not the whole story, but a good portion of the story. Doesn't mention Quinn's power, but says that T'kor is trying to orchestrate a blindside on Quinn, and that obviously, as part of the Pentagon, he was not going to do that. He was just trying to find a time to get them all together so he could tell them all and warn them all. And Quinn is like, what? Since when does T'kor want me out? Like, wait, this is wild. Like, how did this happen? And Cedric's like, I don't know. He's like, where did this come from? Like, thank you for letting me know. I'm not gonna say anything to T'kor, but like, geez, he's got to feel like he has the numbers. Like, is like Rubina in on this? Because like he's so close to Rubina. And they start talking about like how they can't trust Rubina now. And Quinn's like, by the way, I made like a final two with her the other night, like a fake final two with her. And Brooklyn is like, yeah, I also had like a deal with her from early on. It's like, how is Rubina catching this many strays from T'kor? How did Rubina get in? Rubina's taken so many hits for this. It's not very fair.
Not really. What are you gonna do?
Truly. So Quinn now knows that T'kor is taking this shot. Cedric has warned the Pentagon, and everything is in place for Cedric to not go through with this move. T'kor talks to Cam, and Cam also tells T'kor, like, hey, I don't think we're doing this. Like, I don't think I don't think Cedric wants to do it. And Tucker again is like, yeah, I don't care. I'm doing the plan. Like, I think that basically my assumption is that Tucker is interpreting what is being said to him. Because first of all, they never actually even agreed to do it in the first place. Like, they talked about doing it. They talked about like thinking about it, but they never said like, this is locked in, we're doing this. And then when they talked about it again the next day, Cedric is like, yeah, I don't think we have the number. I don't think this is the thing. But I think that like in Tucker's mind, when he's being told like, we don't have the numbers, you should use the veto on yourself, I think in his mind he's like, nope, I'm gonna make this call for you. You're just chickening out, but if I use the veto on Angela, you will have to put up Quinn. Like, I think that he thinks that that is what will happen. Like, that it just has to be that way. That if he does that, then Cedric will have no choice but to follow through. And what he doesn't realize is that Cedric is the HOH.
And he's not America, so he can't use America's veto. And he doesn't have that other power, so he can't use that power. It's almost like Tucker's only power was to save himself.
Yeah.
I would assume that, yes, like Tucker assumes, yes, if I pull Angela off, that's part of the math that makes this work. And I think also, as we're probably going to get to later when we get to this veto meeting, I think he really did assume that calling out Quinn was that last bit of secret sauce he needed for it to be like socially acceptable for Cedric to feel comfortable enough to make the move. He was like, I'm going to get all the blood on the floor. You can be the helpless HOH and go, oh, golly gee, I guess you're on the block. And it probably would have been a safe move for Cedric. I don't think that I think that there's a universe where Cedric is fine, and all he has to do is just communicate to Tucker better, regardless of which way he went. But he didn't do that.
Yes,
not good enough.
This is certainly a point of contention later, but I am certainly on Cedric's side of things in terms of him telling the truth in this point of contention later. However, I will say I do agree that Cedric very much, I think, should have been more communicative to Tucker in the morning to try to mitigate some of this blowback, because he knew that this would be an issue, and I think he was a little bit too hesitant in like having that conversation, like sitting Tucker down. Just game wise, but in terms of, again, the later argument, he was definitely in the right. So we get to the veto ceremony, and just to set up this veto ceremony, we came into this veto ceremony with MJ expecting to go on the block after Tucker uses the veto on himself. MJ was then planning to not use her power to save herself. So Tucker goes into this ceremony thinking, if I use the veto on Angela, it forces Cedric's hand, and I get to make this plan happen, even though Cedric clearly doesn't want to. And if I use the veto on myself, then we go with the Mackenzie plan. And so Tucker is thinking about not using the veto on himself. Mackenzie is thinking about not using her veto power on herself. Angela has no idea that any of this is happening. And Kenny realizes that the plan is not going to happen, and I think expects that Tucker will probably use the veto on himself at this point, not realizing that might not be the case at this point. And so at the veto ceremony, Tucker uses the veto on Angela, which spooks Mackenzie, who gets replaced by Cedric. Cedric replaces Angela with Mackenzie, not Quinn, which pisses Tucker off and spooks Mackenzie, who is planning to not use her power. But now that Angela's off the block instead of Tucker, she's like, whoa, wait a minute, what's going on? And decides, I'm going to use my power. And so she does. Mackenzie no longer has her power. She is also off the block. which leaves Kenny and Tucker as the 2 nominees, with America choosing the 3rd nominee. That is what happens at the veto ceremony. And it has to be one of the most wild, like, series of events at a veto ceremony, at least in a very long time, Sugar.
I can't think of one from maybe last year with the double veto, but that wasn't like the...
Nah, it was just lame.
Yeah, no, honestly, that was someone like throwing a water balloon. This was grenades. This was grenades.
It truly was. So by the time the feeds come back, everybody is still in the living room, and they're in the middle.
I don't think I've ever seen as a live feeder. I've only been a live feeder the last couple of years, but it's been a while since I've seen them all standing in the exact same spot as when the filming stopped.
Yeah.
Chills.
They're in the middle of a house meeting. And this meeting apparently started because Cedric was like, hey, I want everyone to stick around and like talk all of this out in public, because I assume that it was during the ceremony itself that Tucker started calling out Quinn and calling out everyone, or it might have been right after the ceremony. I'm not entirely sure, but Tucker's going off. He basically outs everything. The plan to put up Quinn, he outs Quinn's power. He outs the fact that Kimo told him about Quinn's power, what the power does, that they were going to take the shot at Quinn, that they talked about it the night before, and to cap it all off, that Cedric is a liar who blindsided the out of him, and I can't believe this guy. He's my target.
Oh, Tucker! I'm in a fantasy league on Twitter, and I was 4th to pick, and I picked him. And you know why? Because my other choice, Quinn, was picked 1st. So I lost regardless. That's how I feel.
Not great.
No.
Yes. He calls out. He's most upset with Cedric for playing him. That he tricked him into not using the veto on himself, and then didn't go through with the plan. In the meantime, Quinn, who has just been called out, Tucker said part of the reason why he wanted to target Quinn was that he's the best player in the house. He's got this power. And Quinn's like, listen, I appreciate that you're calling me a great player, but great players don't get called out like this. And Tucker's like, no. You are more athletic than you look. And you're well-versed in the game. You lied to me about being in the alliance, so you're good at this game. No hard feelings, but you're good at this game, and I think that you should be targeted. But don't worry, because this guy, Cedric, is my main target. And they're like, okay, well, I think we all get it. I think we're all on the same page now. I think everybody understands where we're all at. And Cedric is like, yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we all got on the same page. And Tucker's like, sure. Except I wasn't on the same page when you blindsided the me.
I'm more laughing because I just like, I'm watching you just like get ready to censor yourself, and I just like feel I'm like, I just knew I was gonna have a good freaking time with Taran today, because that's how I feel.
Yeah. So yeah, and then they're like, all right, well, I guess there's no more left to say here. And the meeting breaks. But Quinn has got some explaining to do because the power has been outed. And so Quinn has to go on an apology tour. And from here, the day is so convoluted. There are so many different storylines and things that we're not going to go super chronologically. I'm going to go in terms of storylines. So we're going to start with Quinn's story through the day, which begins after the ceremony. With him apologizing to everyone publicly, like, sorry, I do have the power. I wasn't planning to use it, is his main excuse for not telling anybody other than Angela and Kimo. Basically, the line that he's giving is, I was never planning to use it, so I didn't think it mattered if I told anybody else. The only reason I told Angela was because she confronted me about it early on when she was HOH, and I told Kimo because he was on the block and I wanted to comfort him. Which is
Didn't he also tell Kimo that he wanted to use it and hijack his own HOH if he had won it in those first 4 weeks?
Oh, certainly, but he's not saying that.
Yeah, I'm like, he has discussed meta game about this power with other people. I just look, he's gonna be fine this week for the most part. I don't see longevity for Quinn unless everyone just has the biggest blind spot in history. I would not trust Quinn at all. No. But he is a nice shield, at least. It's just such an obvious shield. And he's someone that, like, if he's not going to get voted out this week, he obviously will hijack next week's HOH. So I understand both sides of this. I am on Team Cedric, though. It's just too dangerous without being able to assure, without AI Arena, I think it's an easy done deal. But because of that uncertainty, you have to baby Quinn at least one more week. However, I think once that week ends, he's going to have to win HOH or something. He will be on the block. I do not see him being on the block past week 5.
I mean, listen, America's choosing a nominee. There's chances on the block this week.
I know, but like, will they actually go for? I wonder what would happen if it is Quinn versus T'kor.
Oh, we'll talk about it for sure.
Yeah,
So Quinn, that's basically Quinn's primary line is explaining why Angela and Kimo knew, and then why he didn't tell anybody else. And the bottom line for him is, I was just never planning to use it. Very quickly, he ends up getting into another argument with Angela that gets cut from the feeds because they're talking about the T'kor race situation. And so, according to his later retelling of it, he was basically like, listen, Angela, if you want to have your TV moment, like, I'm down, let's go. And then she kind of backed off. And then the argument ended.
Smart, actually. Not a bad idea.
But then again, he has to just go on this apology tour. Now, most people actually don't really care all that much. The person who probably cares the most is Rubina, who is a little upset about it and starts thinking about different ways in which Quinn might have been playing her and them. The big one for her is, for some reason, that like Quinn really wanted to like be in the same bedroom as them. Like, oh, he was doing that to manipulate us. Which is like, honestly, of all the things Quinn is doing to manipulate them, that I don't think is one of them, that he just genuinely didn't want to be near Angela. And also just genuinely, like, those are the people he gets along with the most. But like, that was the thing in her mind that was like sticking out. Now there was this initial sort of hesitation with Quinn, but they do have a conversation later. And after the conversation, it seems as though the air has been pretty much cleared. She says she trusts him. She later talks to T'kor, and they mention that like they're fine with Quinn. They're not upset with him in any significant way, at the very least. And so even Rubina, who is probably the most perturbed in the moment, kind of comes back around on it. Now, that said, Leah and MJ are still very anti-Quinn. Leah especially. And Leah has been since the night before, when she had the long conversation with Cam, where she came to, like, she connected the dots that, like, Quinn is the reason her relationship with Cedric went poorly, or went to shit, really. And she actually goes to Cedric again later to tell him directly about the bag comments, the thing that caused her to feel hesitation with Cedric. Of course, at this point, Cedric seems to not really care all that much because he's got bigger fish to fry. But Leah spends most of the day on like an anti-Quinn warpath, talking about the various ways that she, doesn't trust him and that nobody should trust him. MJ is kind of on a similar page. She talks to Tucker a decent amount right after the big blow up, and is not necessarily. They don't necessarily side with Tucker because they kind of recognize that that's a bit of a difficult place to be, but they are pretty firmly anti Quinn, and that is kind of their current positioning.
It's hard. I got yesterday sucked for me. I'm sorry for this to be my first update and to
It's a lot.
be able to take in what was at least a 20-hour day for these players. But I don't blame them for being anti-Quinn. Not necessarily, especially Leah, who was very close to Quinn at first. Leah, we're going to talk about Leah later, I'm sure, but I don't know if it's just me. I'm getting Allison vibes, Allison Irwin.
I've heard that before, but I feel like Allison was much more of a game player.
She was, but also, just like Allison, Leah is very cocky, and very, very influential with the boys. And there's a sort of confidence that she has that, yes, people have been discussing targeting her through, every now and then, but I don't think she will hit the block anytime soon. Look.
We'll see if Quinn sticks around.
We'll see if because I feel like Quinn is probably gonna go after. No, Quinn would go after Leah because I'm like, would it be Rubina? No, he's trying to keep Rubina close because after Tucker goes, who does Quinn go after? Look, everything I thought about what was happening changed after yesterday, so I'm just an observer. I'm just gonna get my nice little water and chime in later.
Yes, everything very much in flux. This is a very, very shifting update. So T'kor is a little concerned that Quinn had some stuff going on that she didn't know about. But ultimately, she feels he did tell most of it to her, just not the power stuff and maybe not a couple of the extra final twos that have been revealed. But she still wants the visionaries to work, but she does still kind of feel like maybe we need to have more of a conversation with Quinn. They do talk, and she asked him, are the visionaries still the thing? And he says, absolutely. So it's a little rocky with T'kor, but ultimately she doesn't really have anywhere else to go at the moment. And she's mostly fine with the whole situation and doesn't really blame Quinn all that much for not telling her about the power. She does blame Kimo, but we'll get to that later. Kimo himself kind of vanishes for most of the day. He kind of just if you saw Kimo talking, that you spotted Waldo, because it was he was just kind of just Homer Simpsoning himself.
I feel like I saw him twice. He was sitting there when Tucker was confronting Rubina that morning. Just sitting there the whole time, did not say a single word, which is my favorite thing to do when people are arguing with each other, is just sit there with popcorn. And then obviously he had his late night chat with T'kor, which I think he really, really needed to get back into to some sort of good graces with her. Because you got to tell your best friend T'kor when you have boy problems, when you tell a boy about another boy's power. And I feel bad for Kimo because I feel like he is a very strong player who is very aware of what he should be doing. And I think he even knows that was a lapse of judgment. But a little bit. I mean, that lapse of judgment caused everything yesterday. But what's crazy is I don't think it's really going to come back to him. I don't think anyone's going to be like, oh, Kimo's crush is the reason this all happened. Time to target Kimo. I think he might just slide through and kind of go unscathed through this.
He very much did. Nobody was really talking about Kimo except for T'kor. And his the biggest line he had in the daytime was listen, See, I keep secrets. I'm loyal. I was like, wait, how is that the moral of this story, Kimo? It's literally the opposite, but somehow it seems to be working.
Look, just find a story and stick to it. And if they're happy with that from Kimo, then he picked a good line.
Yeah. Well, Quinn does talk to Joseph to get Joseph's read on the situation. Joseph says right away, listen, I don't care that you didn't tell me. I really don't. And Quinn is like, thank you for saying that, but I do want to make it up to you for not telling you about this. And I want to give you some information. And he goes on to tell the story that we've heard a few times now about the creation of the Pentagon. So as a thank you to Cedric and the Pentagon for keeping him safe this week, he has decided to rat them out immediately as a thank you to Joseph for not.
For what
caring.
exactly? I didn't. Yeah, it was like, thanks for the high five, bud. Here's government information. Like, I literally, and maybe that's a wise move because I do think that having Joseph's support could help him. I mean, I think that Quinn is in a scramble right now, and he's really just trying to like make sure he can feel something concrete with somebody who like he can fully put his trust into, because everyone is saying that they don't care, but I'm sure in Quinn's mind, he is going like crazy trying to figure out exactly how he needs to play the next couple of days to keep the energy off of him.
Yeah. Now, here's the thing. This is, I think, a great move by Quinn. If there wasn't still a chance he could go on the block this week. Because things are in flux right now. Joseph is trying to like sort of like be okay with the fact that he might have just lost T'kor, and like things are again very much in flux. And so Quinn has already been hinting toward Joseph, hey, I think that there's a bit of a core happening in this group and we need to work on our own thing. And so letting Joseph know that this is the core, this Pentagon alliance. He doesn't name the Pentagon, which again is also very smart, I think. But like these are people who are locked in together. They're working together, and we need each other. Is a good start, especially because he's already exposed the Pentagon to a few other people. So it's like you might as well make this play, especially when you know that you're basically guaranteed HOH next week. So even if things do blow up, you have power to stop any damage from happening. The biggest issue I see with this right now is that it is fairly risky still because Joseph is a bit of a wild card and a self-described snake. And you are very heavily relying on the Pentagon to survive the week if you do get put up on the block by America. So if Joseph decides, like Joseph could absolutely just sink Quinn and send him home this week if he wanted to. Does he have a reason to? Not really at the moment.
I mean,
but you never know.
If Quinn goes out now, Joseph gets the deep dive.
That's fair. And also, it's not like Kimo had a reason to sink his game with T'kor either, and he still did. So, it's you never.
Boys are pretty, Taran. Boys are pretty. It's hard, okay.
I guess you just gotta hope that Joseph doesn't have too much of a crush on T'kor, given that he really did want to work with him. So he explains the Pentagon without naming it to Joseph, and Joseph asks if he told Kimo and T'kor about this already, and of course Quinn has told both Kimo and T'kor about this, but he says, no, I did not tell them about this. I warned them to watch out, but I didn't tell them about this. I probably will tonight, though, is what he said, which I don't think he lied very well here, but I don't know if Joseph caught it. It was an astute question to ask, though, by Joseph, and I think really kind of nailed the kind of information that he should be gathering here. Like, if you're so free to tell me about this, who else have you told already? are you closer with them? If I agree with you and decide I want to work with your side of things against this solidified core, am I just jumping from one bottom to another? Is I think the general gist of that question. And we'll see. Again, I think that this is a little sloppy in terms of execution here, but I don't know how much Joseph was able to catch in that moment, especially with everything else going on.
I think this is going to be a day that like sloppy moves will be forgiven. They just will, because so many sloppy moves happen that like it's hard enough for us to keep up. I doubt that all of them are going to be completely informed on every single stupid thing that happened yesterday.
Yeah. So Quinn talks to Cedric. Of course, we know Cedric is already, he was one of the most upset people with Quinn about the power situation prior to all this, because he knew about the power prior to this. And Quinn really does, I think, sell well to Cedric. He says multiple times throughout the day, like, I'm so grateful to you for doing this, for like sticking up for me. You have really, really proven your loyalty, and I will, like, you have my loyalty forever. Of course, we know this is not true because he literally just ratted Cedric out to Joseph, but he's selling it well to Cedric. Say one thing about Quinn. His social game is very good. He's been invited to like every alliance, and even fake alliances and imaginary alliances. Quinn's in every single one of them. Strategically is another question, but like he does well here. So well, in fact, that I do think that by the end of the day, Cedric is kind of talking to the cameras and saying that he does actually feel kind of good about Quinn again. And that he's locked back in with the Pentagon. And Quinn isn't in his end game plans, but he is not thinking about like, the night before he was like, we'll wait a couple weeks, then we'll strike Quinn. Now he's thinking a little more along the lines of, we'll go to Pentagon 5 or something along those lines. And then Quinn will be like the 5th or maybe the 4th, considering how they feel about Cam at the moment. So with maybe some substitutions here and there. But basically, Quinn has done a good job to get back in with Cedric for now.
Which is just crazy to me. Because, like, wasn't Cedric the one was like, hey, wait, why didn't Quinn tell me about the power too? Aww. It feels like everyone has a moment. Everyone in this house has had a moment where they're like, wait, but Quinn wasn't being fully truthful? Oh, geez. And it's like, do they think that he's just going to get better as the time of the weeks pass? Like, no, this is a problem that might not need to be taken care of now. But, like, this is not a single-digit player in my brain. If I was in that house, I would not want them making it past 10th. Maybe I want them in a jury. Maybe I trust that they vote for me. But when it comes down to only 1 or 2 votes left determining everything that happens, Quinn is danger. And I am impressed that they don't seem to recognize that fully yet.
I think a huge part of this is circumstantial. Cedric, who is very much like a people pleaser, very much had always wanted to keep everyone liking him as much as possible, just got totally called out by T'kor, and now has like a very aggressive enemy coming at him. And standing by his side, like putting his hand on his shoulder, is Quinn being like, I got you. And no matter how you feel about what Quinn has done or who Quinn is, like that's a really powerful feeling to feel supported in a moment when you feel very vulnerable. And I think because of that, it's really like bonding them to some degree, but also just like in Cedric's mind, making him feel a lot better about Quinn. But because it's circumstantial, when circumstances change, if circumstances change, that feeling could change again, and he could remember, I did feel really hurt by Quinn. So I do think that Quinn has done a good job, and that Cedric and Quinn are kind of back on board. Not to like QC levels, not to quality control levels, but you know, much better than they had been the night before. It may be a temporary thing while Cedric is on the back foot, and if he finds himself back into a position of power, things could change again. So we'll have to see about that. Brooklyn and Chelsea, probably the biggest winners of this whole situation. They're totally fine with Quinn. In fact, they are just like, this is great, actually, because Quinn should just use his power next week, and we have another guaranteed HOH. Additionally, they're able to kind of like play the field in the house right now because they were not a part of any of this. Their involvement in the Pentagon and the collective is still hidden. And the women's thing that they are kind of vaguely a part of because they have this connection to MJ and Leah is theoretically out, but also kind of hidden because it's now been called out in a way that was like, this isn't real, and so on and so forth. We'll talk a little bit more about them later, but in relation to Quinn, they don't really care at all. Brooklyn, in fact, was like totally didn't care. Chelsea really doesn't care. Quinn didn't even have to work on them. Then Cam, who knows? Cam spent the day dealing with Leah and pretending he was still on Tucker's side, basically. So he's kind of all over the place. Don't really know how he's feeling about Quinn at the moment because he barely even talked to like the Pentagon or Quinn or any of that. He was just, I feel like he talked to Leah for 5 hours. So.
Yeah, as I was like going through the feeds yesterday, I was like, oh wait, was this the Leah Cam talk? And then it'd be like, I would search somewhere else, like, wait, I thought that was oh wait, is it still happening? Okay. And then it's now we're in a different room. Okay, you guys are just still going at it. Like, it's actually kind of impressive that with everything going on, Leah and Cam were able to find so much time to bicker endlessly like a couple that is not a couple. They're like the way that they talk. I think that Cam understands now that Leah is not interested in him, but he does not understand how to talk to Leah outside of that lens. And so he's like, it feels like he's like, can I say this? Can I say that? And Leah, very Allison, is just like, cold, calculated answer, actually. You know? I'm the best. And it's not really helping either, though, in the slightest. I think it's annoying everybody else, and it's reminding everybody else that these are players that aren't going to have their other alliance members' best interests at heart at the end of the day. So sexy sinking ship for both of them.
Yes. Well, we'll get a little bit more about them later. But that was basically Quinn's through line through the day. He is still, and we'll talk about the Americas vote at the end as well. But basically, it goes pretty well for Quinn overall.
And it probably shouldn't have. Like this. But I think that the way he played it today was just like, okay, everyone else is really mad. And he kind of yelled at Angela for a second, but who doesn't yell at Angela every day? He played it really smart to the point where, like, Cedric, who almost targeted him, and Tucker, who wanted to target him, are now both, for the most part, great with Quinn. They hate each other now. I don't know what magic Quinn has, but it really worked for him today.
Yes, he did a good job of remaining calm for the most part. He did not seem too panicked. And by that, I mean, like, he didn't really rise to, like, you know, yelling, arguing with Tucker or anything. He did rise to Angela, but like in a way that felt, I think most people felt like was reasonable. And then more importantly, he didn't get too squirmy, which is, I think, what a lot of players in this spot that are in this archetype would get as like this kind of like, wait, but hey, no, guys, you just still trust me. It was a little taste of some squirminess, but like overall, I think he was able to stay pretty chill. And I think that was huge in terms of people continuing to potentially trust him moving forward. That said, this was still a huge shot to his game and his position. And there's going to be a lot of work ahead of them. And in addition to that, again, lots of things to talk about in terms of just this week still and the amount of danger that he continues to be in if he ends up on the block later this week. So, T'kor, as I mentioned, was not really upset with Quinn. She was more upset with Kimo because Kimo, she expected, would have told her. Quinn, she gets it. But Kimo, he knew the whole time and never said a word to her. In fact, she's remembering moments like throughout the first couple of weeks where they were talking about the power. And Kimo, she's remembering, like, Kimo just lied to my face. Like, there was a moment where she was joking about her having the power, and he was like, wait, do you? Like, he knew I didn't have the power. Like, he was, like, so many little instances that he was lying to me in. And it hurts because, like, they have a strategic relationship, yes, but I think the primary reason they bonded was that they have, like, a fairly personal relationship. And so she feels kind of hurt by this. And she's also like not good at confrontation, she says. And so she's not really sure how to approach him about it. So she does end up having a conversation with him late into the night. It's one of the last conversations of the day. And it's fine. I would say that like she, again, like, I don't know that she's like fully confronting him here, and I don't know exactly where the relationship stands. There definitely feels like there's still a lot of awkwardness between them. So it's something to watch out for. Generally, what I would say is that, like, if this were, because this does kind of feel like a real life rift, if this were real life, I could see this being a thing that kind of broke up their friendship a bit, and maybe they don't hang out for a little while. I don't know. However, in the Big Brother house, things like this often do kind of get smoothed over eventually because there's nowhere else to go. There's a lot of forced interaction. And at the end of the day, the reason they came together was a very personal reason. They really just get along with each other. And so, uh, you know, in a house where that's the person you get along with the best naturally, like, you're going to find a way to, you're going to be interacting more. You're going to find a way to gravitate toward each other again. I think they'll be fine, but there's still some work to be done, I think.
And I think they'll be fine. I think it's up to Kimo now to regain T'kor's trust. I think a Kimo HOH after Quinn's deepfake happens, if it happens, would be really helpful to like solidify with T'kor. This is what we want to do together as a duo. And I do agree that these sort of things will get brushed over, I think, better than other sort of game moves, because this was what Kimo was told this information one of the first few days, and he is just trying to show that he can keep secrets. I think there's enough positives to this Kimo mistake for T'kor to interpret and internalize, and like, I think she could wake up today being like, you know what? He was put in a weird place. We weren't technically working together in that moment. We are now, though. We had it was awkward, but like, I think those awkward talks when you're like reconciling with friends are always just sort of cringy. And once you work through it and you get through it, you're like, oh, I'm glad we went through that. I'm glad we took care of it. I don't know. We'll see. I hope the best for them because Kimo was my first pick in the fantasy league I'm doing with my boyfriend, and T'kor was my boyfriend's. So that would be hilarious if they were the final two.
Would. So that's what's going on with T'kor and Kimo. Tucker has his own journey through the day. In particular, though, the romantic one is that he had talked again. He had confronted Rubina earlier in the day about the comment he made and how she was spreading that stuff. And they made up in that moment, only for him to then go off at the veto ceremony, unbeknownst to Rubina. And again, she's taking heat now for what he's doing because they're so linked in the game. And so she has to spend a lot of time like, hey, I had no idea that was going to happen. I had nothing to do with this. I had no part in it. And so she's kind of mad at him again here. after that. But then she talks to him, and they kind of make up again, and to the glee of the Tubina shippers, he says, "Hey, if we weren't in this house, we'd be something." And there's a lot more like overt flirting between the two of them, which gets her firmly like back on board. And she kind of spends the rest of the day trying to make sure that Tucker stays if he ends up on the block at the end of the week, if he doesn't win the AI Arena competition.
I do think Tucker did a really good job with Rubina in terms of that balance of like, I can tell that she is interested and I'm interested. We don't want to necessarily do that game in here. So I'll say that, but then I'm going to immediately neg her and call her my sister. So to make sure that like in the house, there's not going to be any sort of like expectation for Rubina to expect anything besides more of a brother-sister relationship. But that sort of wink, wink promise that afterwards, who knows, I think is that just that tiny little inkling that it's, I hate being a pick-me girl, but I am. And I'm just like, oh, I would do the same if he is. Yeah, Tucker could tell me whatever he wants with his batting eyelashes. And I'd be like, yeah, man, whatever, dude. Sounds good. So kudos, it worked.
Man, listen, Tucker's got a spell. If he came in with the flirt card, he'd be running this out.
Actually, I think Tucker is Allison.
Yeah, that might be true. So unfortunately for Rubina, her kind of defense of Tucker is not helping her disassociation with Tucker and his antics. And so even players like T'kor are a little bit concerned about Rubina and how close she is with Tucker. And it is definitely harming her position in the house right now. But Rubina is not the only one that Tucker seems to have a spell over still, because even Kimo, in his conversation with T'kor, seemed to be making an attempt to defend Tucker. And you would think no, after that he really betrayed his trust by revealing the information he told him. But there's something about Tucker, I guess.
I'm like really happy I'm not in this cast, actually. I'd have been really annoyed because what Kimo is going through is very relatable, but I feel like it's something that most gay men went through when they were in middle school and high school, maybe even college. And that Kimo is mortified right now that he is actively going through this 24/7 live feeds where he has to have the big gay crush on the charismatic straight dude, and he's falling for it. I really feel bad for Kimo because I can tell that his game is stronger than this moment. I don't know.
Do we think if Tucker leaves, does Kimo get his head back in the game? Because it feels like he has a head for the game, but he's not using it.
I feel like everyone's going to get their head back in the game when Tucker leaves. Well, and Kevin Jacobs tweeted something that was like, Tucker's a dangerous player because he's going to do the unexpected. He's literally making you expect the unexpected, which makes it really hard to pre-plan. I think once that sort of chaotic energy is out of the house, honestly, I think the season's going to start to dip again, and we're going to get maybe another couple weeks of repetitive, because once Tucker leaves, safety will come back into the mindset and the comfort of the house.
Yeah. Well, there is still some disagreement about whether Kenny or Tucker should leave, because obviously Cedric now would love for Tucker to go if he loses the AI Arena competition, and Quinn is very happy to back him up on that because he would also love to see Tucker leave at this point. However, Brooklyn and Chelsea have been pushing Kenny for a while, and they're still kind of on that. They still kind of would prefer Kenny leave because Kenny's the one whose whole thing is about the women's alliance. And he's talking about Brooklyn, and he's talking about the women. And so they still want Kenny gone. And they certainly have the support of Rubina and seemingly Kimo. And so
and possibly Kenny.
exactly. So there is a lot of momentum still to keep Tucker over Kenny if the two of them are on the block together. But there is some push now because of Tucker's antics for Tucker to leave, and he's going to make that even more difficult for himself in a little bit. But Cedric and Quinn and even Joseph has jumped on board. Like, I give up on Tucker. Like, this is like he tried Matt, didn't work. He's now tried Tucker. He's like, you know what? That's I'm gonna wipe my hands clean of this one. I'm not gonna spend too much longer on it like I did Matt. And he's willing to let Tucker go. So there might be a little bit of a battle here. But ultimately it really is Brooklyn and Chelsea that have the right of way right now. They have like the numbers, they have the influence to really do what they want. So if they want Kenny gone over Tucker, I do think that's what will happen. It's just a matter of like, do they change their minds? Because at the end of the day, Tucker is probably more dangerous, and also is like, Kenny, you're right about the women. So if they hear about that, like that could be an issue for Tucker.
Mm-hmm. I think it's like, but what are Chelsea and Brooklyn going to want out of whoever stays? I think what it's going to come down to. It's like, if they keep Tucker, Tucker's obviously going after Cedric, which I don't think Brooklyn and Chelsea really want that right now. But if Kenny stays, Kenny might come after the woman, which I also don't think neither of them really want right now. So I think it's going to be a lesser of two evils when it comes down to it.
Yes, and ultimately we're going to see Brooklyn confront Kenny about his women's alliance comments. I think part of this too is that like, because they now know that Quinn can neutralize anybody's HOH next week, they're not really worried about either one of them, because what can they do? They can't control nominations. If either of them win HOH, Quinn's just going to overturn it. So they can really like use this to like hammer down where these people stand. And so Brooklyn confronts Kenny about this. He denies the severity of these comments. He's like, I'm not running around saying this all the time, but basically admits to making them. And it's not like, honestly, to call it a confrontation is maybe dressing it up a little bit, especially in comparison to some of the others during the day. But he does basically admit to it, and also says, like, right in front of T'kor, that T'kor would have been one of his nominations, which she's going to joke about later. So really does not help his cause. He also says again that he wants to go home anyway, because the second things get hard. That's what he says. Now, interestingly, we heard from Tucker that, and this is according to Tucker, so take it with a grain of salt. But Tucker said that that Kenny told him that they said to Kenny in the diary room, you need to stop saying that you want to leave. Because if you keep saying this, we're just going to kick you with no stipend. And that is perhaps why Kenny has been acting like he wants to stay a little more.
Oh gosh. Oh, mommy and daddy are mad at Kenny. He's not playing in the playpen right. Oh,
Listen, this is amazing. This is exactly what I wanted production to do. This is exactly what they should do. I think that they should make that threat, and I think they should follow through on that threat.
Kick him out of Chuck E. Cheese's.
Yeah, exactly. So I think I'm honestly happy to hear this. I hope it's true. And we'll see. We'll see if there's any follow through on this. My guess is that it's not. Not that it's not true. I think it's possible that they said this, but my guess would be that it is just a toothless threat and they wouldn't actually do it. But Joseph, again, I said, has basically given up on Tucker. And he is more with Quinn now that Tucker should go. So there's a little bit of a back and forth. Should Tucker stay? Should Tucker go? And again, as I mentioned before, Tucker does not help himself because he's still hot. He's still feeling mad. And he wants to be arguing more. Nobody's really like rising to his bait and arguing with him. And I think that's frustrating for Tucker because Tucker's getting loud. He's like, you blindsided me. I can't, like, you set me up. And Cedric is like, no. And so there's some misinformation kind of going around that I think Tucker is willfully misinterpreting about, like, well, Cedric is not admitting to all of the details. So he's like, okay, here we go. I'm going to confront Cedric about this. I can't believe you're denying that you knew about this plan ahead of time. And Cedric is like, I'm not denying it. I knew it ahead of time. I'm happy to say that to everyone. And Tucker's like, well, but I'm still mad though, because you didn't tell me I should use the veto on myself. And so he pivots. He pivots to a different thing because he's got to be mad at Cedric for something. And so the thing that he's mad at is, again, you might have noticed this earlier, that one of Tucker's biggest complaints was that Cedric set him up and blindsided him and didn't warn him that he was going to put up Mackenzie instead of Quinn, and didn't tell him that he shouldn't use the veto on Angela, even though Cedric did do those things.
Even though Cedric verbatim did exactly those things.
Yes. And so Tucker is going to go off. He's just like, you never told me. You never told me to not use the veto on myself, to use the veto on myself. And listen, they get, like, the way that they say it is like, you didn't tell me to not use the veto. Which is technically not the correct phrasing of that, right? The correct phrasing is, you didn't tell me to use the veto on myself, but they get it mixed up. So I don't know if I'm going to follow them or if I'm going to follow me. Either way, don't pay attention to the details. Cedric says, that's not true. I told you to use it. And Tucker's like, no, you didn't. Listen, all you needed to do is put Quinn up and say, you don't talk game to me. Because that's true. And what happened was, you blindsided the out of me. It's like, Cedric's like, dude, I told you to use it. Just, like, watch it back. Like, watch it back and you'll see. I told you to use it on yourself. He's like, I'm going to watch it back and see that you didn't say it. Because no, you didn't. And honestly, and even if you did, which you didn't, I said, who cares? Because we got a plan. You had nothing to worry about, bro. And I'm gunning for you. You're my number one target now. You know, bro, that's it. You're my number one target now. And you did not say to use the veto on yourself. I did. You did not, dog. Come on, dog. Keep digging your grave, dog. The truth will prevail, bro. The truth will prevail.
I know Tucker was on an episode of The Good Fight, but I didn't realize he would bring a good fight. He brought several. And just, I was talking to my friend Roxanne about this, and she texted me last night, just, Tucker, gaslight, gatekeep, girl boss. And it's exactly Tucker's plan. And it's almost like the louder I say it, the more truthful it is, right, everyone? I think Cedric handled himself so well, though, just not feeding into it. I think that's always a good skill in Big Brother, is if someone's screaming at you, if someone's coming at you at a 10, give them a 2. Give them a 2 back in energy. It will drive them crazy.
Exactly. And that's exactly what happened. Cedric really composed himself and handled it really well. Everyone was pretty much on Cedric's side here. They all felt bad for Cedric. I did my best to get, like, the neck veins popping, but it's tough. I'm still recovering from.
You did amazing. If you were at a drag show, I would tip you right now. I was like, what? Yes.
Thank you. So Cedric is very frustrated about the situation, and he does kind of, like, raise his voice a little more, like, afterward when he's talking to people about it, like, just like, I can't, but, like, what are you doing? And so he's kind of but like, in a good way, in a way that was like, he was really composed in the moment, like, just held strong to his truth, didn't rise to Tucker's energy level. And then after was like not afraid to express that he was upset about it. And just let the emotions out. And I think like it really landed well with everyone he talked to. Angela, who had initially been like very much on Tucker's side and said, Cedric, you should have backed Tucker, was like, listen, Cedric, like you really like handled yourself well there. Like, I'm sorry for what we talked about earlier. Um, and uh and again, like this is when Quinn is like, dude, I owe you so much. Thank you so much for taking all this heat for me. And what I really appreciated as well with from Cedric here is that he still had the presence of mind in that moment to be like, listen, like I hope this really shows you, Quinn, that I've got your back and that I trust you. And Quinn is like, yes, of course, 100%. So he was still thinking strategically, even though he was like expressing this genuine emotion. It was great. This is like textbook how you handle this kind of argument, I think, from Cedric.
Absolutely. And he made it, when he went outside and did all this, Cedric made it entertaining still for everybody else. It wasn't like when you watch someone ranting at work and you're uncomfortable because it's starting to cross a line. There was always like a nice bit of levity in how Cedric was speaking about it. It was almost like Cedric could not believe it had happened himself and was like trying to share how he was processing it with everyone. And so they were able to like just relate to him more, which I don't know. It kind of reminded me of if Mimi's storage rant from last year was like a public rant and everyone was just like, yay, keep going, do it.
Yeah. So the collective does come together minus Kimo and T'kor, and to have a brief little meeting where they agree that Quinn should just be using his power next week. Quinn says that he will be basically just putting up some combination of Angela, Kenny, Tucker, Mackenzie, Leah. Just like whoever is available of that group of people, whoever's still in the game of that group of people, they're just locks for the nominations next week. And everyone is happy with that. Everyone wants that. And so that's basically the plan moving forward.
Smart. It makes it make more sense for why they wouldn't want to figure out how to backdoor Quinn this week, because yes, he is such a guaranteed, it's a certainty next week. And if a certainty includes 4 people that are not anybody else in your alliance, like what's the point of burning the power if the power is going to be great for you anyways? I really feel bad for Tucker because he just had a spark of an idea and couldn't let it go. I think like having some sort of like improv background actually leans itself really well into Big Brother, which is like the idea of yes and I feel like when Cedric came to Tucker this morning and said, we don't have the numbers, that was a yes and, as in like, yes, and we shouldn't do anything crazy and you should use the veto on yourself. You know, like yes anding is yes, you can say no, but what you're actually doing is giving them helpful information. And Tucker heard all that helpful information and chose not to actually hear what it meant. And he has no one to blame but himself right now. Mm-hmm. And maybe Kimo, but not really. I don't think Kimo told Tucker this for him to like sabotage Tucker's own game.
Yeah, well, I mean, what he told Tucker was like, we can use this. This is good for us. And Tucker was like, I disagree.
I disagree. And also, I have a flamethrower.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit more about Chelsea and Brooklyn. They spend the day really working at Leah and MJ, pretending like they're still on their side, and continuing to like play up that is some kind of group that's happening. And again, just like being in this very central position now. This happens occasionally in on Big Brother seasons where like, because the house is so fluid and there's like such a moving target, like the person that's in the best spot or the people that are in the best spot is like shifting based on circumstances. And right now it is very much like Chelsea and Brooklyn who have the in with MJ and Leah, who are in with the Pentagon, the collective, and are both people that the visionaries want to work with as well. And in fact, the visionaries are even more reliant on pulling in Brooklyn and Chelsea now that they don't have Tucker. So again, big win, I think, for Chelsea and Brooklyn overall. Meanwhile, this should be a big win for Leah and MJ, but they continue to sort of like miss their opportunities to actually make movement in the game because Leah spends most of the day just on the anti-Quinn campaign or arguing with Cam. Because remember, the night before, she had this lengthy conversation with Cam because he warned her, hey, you're an option for the block, but don't worry, I'm keeping you safe. And then she spread that around, and then he got mad at her and he confronted her about it. And they had this long conversation where he denied having any kind of bro alliance, that there was nothing going on. He was in no alliances like that. It was her fault that she shouldn't be saying things. And then they started talking more about Quinn, and the Quinn stuff came out there. But now, just one day later, everything blows up, and Tucker is, when confronting Cedric, talking about, yeah, we've got the shakers and the players, and Leah's like, so you were in alliances. You lied to me. Like, you were such a douche last night about your righteousness, and you were lying to me the whole time. And Cam is just trying to do his whole Cam thing. Like, what? Well, not really. That's not really how it played out. And you needed to do this. And it's just a long and really pointless whole discussion. And again, like just doing nothing for Leah's game. Like, there's so much up in the air right now. There's so much going on. So much is in flux. There's so much opportunity to be doing something in the game, and she's wasting all this time on Cam, having an argument, and like not even like going to Quinn. Like, Quinn is just dispensing information like he's like a Pez dispenser, and she's just like, nah, I'm good. I've got enough from you, Quinn. It's just like the game sense is frustrating. And then MJ as well is like spending way too much time talking to Tucker, and not even getting useful information out of him other than the information that's already been publicly talked about. And then, unfortunately for MJ, she's getting sucked into the black hole of Brooklyn and Chelsea, who are just like working her, but don't actually want to work with her. And so she's wasting a lot of time there as well. And so the two of them are just really starting to flounder here.
Poor girls. And I feel like they have not really had footing this entire season. The most was MJ holding this power, but it is officially gone. There's no more power to it. And yeah. When I said that Leah is like Allison, I'm not operating under the mindset that Nathan's going to use the veto on Allison again. I think we're past that. I think that this is like a version of Allison that other players are just going to be too savvy to. If Leah gets deep into the game, it could be. We could see what she can do when there's less connections, but yeah, I just don't see anyone else saving her if she gets put in a place of danger.
Yeah. Well, we'll see.
And it's like she could be working Cam right now, who is so like, yes, Cam lied to her about this boys alliance, whatever. It's Big Brother. We all lie. Like, clearly this guy is giving you so much energy. Like, there's not one inkling in your brain going, ugh, I mean, I don't like him, but like, this is good for my game. Like, he could have written the Cam line, just like Alyssa wrote the Kyle line on 24, and to the point where when Kyle's big alliance wanted to take Alyssa out, Kyle was like, no, don't take it. Like, Leah could do this exact same thing and have Cam become a martyr for her. But no, screw you, Cam. I hate you.
Look, she's got eyes for Tucker instead.
Yeah, Tucker, the most emotionally resonating, beautiful, intelligent, calm presence. Really good for Leah's game. That's a good choice.
Tucker, by the way, has a theory that America's going to nominate Leah because she's made some comments that I don't
I'm
think
like,
we've
what?
heard.
I don't think we've heard either. I'm like, good job, Skippy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, that is the thing. It's like, well, yeah, I don't trust that we would have heard them because they would have blocked them. But it's also, this is now Tucker's word for it. And I don't know how much we can believe Tucker.
Yeah. God, that actually horrifies me, being in the house and having another house guest start spreading rumors that you said something offensive.
And
if
the
that
best
came back
defense
to
for
me,
that is full live feeds with flashbacks.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and I'd be like, well, I'm not kicked out yet, so I guess I didn't cross the rule book that hard. Kind of bad. If she did say something, that's crazy. She doesn't seem the type. She literally, what was it? They were doing baby voices today, and they were just being silly little babies. I'm like, I just don't think that's the same person.
Well, and it's also like, what is Tucker's like line for, like, what is his interpretation of like an inappropriate thing? You know what I mean?
What wasn't he talking to someone and they were like, well, they said you called him names. He was like, yeah, well, I called him this, and that, and a mother effer, but besides that, besides the 5 horrible things I said, I didn't say anything else.
Mm-hmm. So speaking of, there's a lot of speculation about who might be nominated by America. Of course, they are all now waiting with bated breath, like who's gonna go up on the block. Pretty much all of the talk is of whoever it is, we're not voting them out. Except for Leah and MJ, who are like, if it's Quinn, right? And Chelsea and Brooklyn are like pretending like they'd be willing to consider that, but of course we know that they wouldn't actually. So Joseph has a lot of strong opinions that are very wrong, in my opinion. I have no idea Joseph. Why. Like you'd think a guy who is like really well versed in the show, maybe he's just pretending that this is his opinion, but it's just so Joseph thinks that the most likely person to be nominated is a person that's invisible, a person that hasn't contributed much, that's not on the show.
Yeah, that's right. America wants to nominate Purple Kelly. Genius move.
It's just like that they don't know who it is to vote for them. They are the least likely people. The person who has been the most invisible, I guarantee you, will get the least amount of votes of anybody. It is the complete opposite. This is not a vote for safety. This is not a vote for this person to protect them, I think, because that'd be wild. This is a who do you want to see nominated, which means that you have to have a feeling about the person. You have to know who they are. And so it's just like it's genuinely, I think, the complete opposite of what Joseph said.
I'm like, based off of what Joseph's logic is, and then reverse it, Joseph should be looking at people who are on the block, have been HOH, played in veto, have been a part of fights. Those are the people that I'd be examining as like potential renoms. Honestly, based off of gameplay, based off of DRs from the last episode or two, and I think it's gonna be Quinn. I mean, we're gonna see what this edit Wednesday says, but like, it's just been a lot of Quinn screaming in the DR, and that's never really he's giving me Johnny Mac vibes actually when he's in the DR. And I think that him just not keeping the secret together, I think him being very present in the edits and messing up this power, I think a lot of different camps, including Angela's family, who has officially endorsed in this presidential election that they will be nominating Quinn. And I stand with Angela's family.
Listen, a lot of choices being made today. So yes, I will say for Joseph, there are some theories in the chat, and I will give him this, that there's certainly a chance that he is, again, just saying this publicly. I don't think I've heard him say it to the cameras that he believes this to be true. And he also is like setting it up that he is a possibility is like, could be me. Like I'm an asshole. And so I think that
Yes.
it's definitely possible that he's just trying to set up, like, if he does get nominated by America, that like, oh, that's because I'm so irrelevant and I'm not even in the episodes and I just look like a douche. So I'll give him that amount of leeway. But otherwise, what are you doing, Joseph? This is ridiculous. Quinn is feeling fairly confident that there's a good chance it could be him. And I do agree. I think that Quinn is the most likely person right now to be nominated. And his logic is pretty sound as well, that like, I've been involved in a bunch of drama, and then with all of this drama, nominating me would cause the most drama, and it would potentially lead to the most split vote. So like, it would make a lot of sense for me to be put up. And he tells Cedric that he'll do his best to beat T'kor in the AI arena if he does go up. And he goes over votes with Joseph and worries that it could actually be kind of close, because it could actually be kind of close. If Quinn goes up on the block against Kenny, I think he's pretty fine. But against T'kor, things get kind of risky because of Rubina. So if it's Quinn versus T'kor on the block at the end of the week, there are 11 votes. You need 6 to stay. Angela, Rubina, MJ, Leah, and T'kor, and Kenny are all votes against him.
Because Kenny would be off the block at that point. Yeah.
Kenny
So
would
they
be
would
off
just
the block.
need to get one flip. And I do think, as you said earlier, how does Joseph feel about knowing that there's this Pentagon alliance?
So yeah, I mean, there's a couple of weak points here. One is Cam, who's kind of a little bit of a wild card. I don't think he goes rogue from Pentagon. I think he probably stays true and votes to keep Quinn. But that's a little bit of a worry. Then there's Joseph, who's again a self-described snake. I don't think he would vote Quinn out either, but you don't want to have to rely on Joseph. Then there's Kimo, who I don't think would vote out Quinn. But T'kor is the other person.
But also, it's the love of his life.
So, so there's like, I think Quinn stays in that spot, but it's a very close vote. And there are a lot of weak points, and there are a couple of days for things to shift in a bad direction for him. So it is a little risky. However, that does also require Kenny to beat both Quinn and T'kor in the AI arena competition. Which means Kenny has to A, try in the AI arena competition, and B, beat Quinn and T'kor in the AI arena competition. So it's a little far-fetched that we would even get there in the first place, but that is, I think, a distinct possibility that Quinn could be up there, and that like there could be a bit of a vote split. And now, if it was Quinn versus Kenny, I think he wins by a safer margin. That even with Angela, Leah, Mackenzie, and T'kor maybe all voting for Quinn to leave, I think Quinn does have Rubina at that point to take out Kenny. And then that the margin is a little easier there. So I think again, I think either way Quinn stays, but it's far from a guarantee right now, especially with a couple days to go.
You don't think in that last situation, T'kor could convince Rubina to vote with him to send Kenny home?
It's possible. It's definitely possible. But the problem is that I think, I think T'kor will need time to do that. And so if he doesn't plan ahead and talk Rubina into voting out Quinn over Kenny, then if he's trying to like pull her aside in the 60 seconds that they have to be like, you need to vote Quinn, I don't know if he can get her to do that quick enough, especially because Kenny has been so anti-women. That's like, why does that benefit me at all? And then even if he does, you need another vote on top of Rubina as well. So, it's a little bit tougher there, I think, to make it work. So we'll see about that. There are other possibilities, of course. I have seen a lot of people talking about Joseph. They've seen the casuals. They have been talking about Joseph as a potential person. I've seen a lot of talk about Cam and the frustration with Cam and Leah, the two of them, even perhaps because of the annoyingness of them. And also, like, it might just depend on like whose side you're on. And then I think more than anything, I think it really will depend on the Wednesday episode. I think that the Wednesday episode is going to be a massive episode. There's a ton of stuff to include. There's big dramatics, and the way that it's portrayed, I think, will directly cause whoever gets nominated to be nominated.
Absolutely.
Who is the villain of that episode? Who is the person that the audience is told would provide the most drama? Who does production want to protect? Who do they want to throw up on the block? They have complete control, in my opinion. And this is kind of the point of this twist. Production decides who goes on the block on Thursday. And so what we see on Wednesday, I think, will be a direct sort of like attempt at making that happen.
If I were to predict, I would predict Quinn to be who production would push.
I would assume so too.
Because it would be a fun option. Oh no, both of the powers could go out in the same week. Whoa. And so in that sense, I'm like, I kind of appreciate that. Like the fun choice is also the likely choice like the choice that should happen. I don't know. Part of me doesn't want to actually be a person that votes. Like, I don't want to be like online and say, I had a stance on this person being nominated. That doesn't sound fun to me as a human being that has to interact with other human beings after this.
That is a very good instinct.
Yeah. So look, I'm here for Team Chaos at the end of the day. So we'll see. But yeah, I think it's a Quinn.
Quinn, I agree. I think Quinn is the most likely person right now, but it could be anybody. And until we see the Wednesday episode, I don't think we'll know.
And if it is Quinn on the block going home, could Quinn use his power as leverage to stay, or will that power be what ultimately sends him home? I think it's more likely that he could use that as leverage and be like, look, if all he needs is 6 votes, he'd be like, hey, you 6, you're safe with me. Vote for me. Great. Anyone who didn't vote for me, nominee. Easy. Done. I think that Quinn will be safe this week. I do think T'kor or Kenny. But we'll see. Quinn could really... He has made mistakes before. He will make mistakes again. Let's see if he can wait it out.
This is all I'll say about the vote. My ideal scenario is that Kenny leaves this week. I think that's... best case scenario... Yes. Is that Kenny leaves, and whatever makes that happen the best is what I'm rooting for.
Your unabashed hatred for what Kenny does in that house brings me so much joy. Can I say like one Kenny anecdote that made me laugh and actually really like him? And it was week 1 when Angela was in the kitchen and was like, you gotta win this. I'm rooting for you. And I don't know why, but I thought it was hilarious that Kenny knew what Angela wanted, which was a little bit like, no, you got it, Angela, I can do it, or something like that. Kenny said, no, I'm giving you nothing. It was like very reminiscent of Cameron's wrongs from last year. And I just think and Big Brother, even if it's a bad move, I will always be entertained by just shutting someone down.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that Kenny shuts others down. He shuts himself down every other 5 seconds. The shutdown king of the season. Why am I entertained by him? I like messy. I like dumb. I like bad. Because it's different, okay? Like, I don't remember the people that were kind of boring and played it safe and piddled out. No, I will remember Kenny, the kind of quitter. The legacy.
There was a pretty funny moment. So it's starting to be pretty widespread that everyone believes that Kenny is a cop, mostly via Quinn. And when Cedric called the Pentagon meeting before the veto ceremony, Cedric told them all that Kenny and T'kor were pushing to target Quinn. Quinn was like, "Oh, he's just such a cop. Like, cops never like me."
That's how I'd feel in the house too. Oh God.
And then and then Brooklyn was like, well, he can go back to his food truck. And Quinn was like, he doesn't have one. He's a cop. He's like asking to search my car. I don't even have a car here.
I mean, I just think that lie was never gonna pan out. Like, and I just don't think food truck was the best lie for him. I think he should have.
No.
He could have been a bailiff. If he told me that he was a bailiff, I'd be like, yeah, that tracks. All right, next witness or whatever. Like, I don't know. You got to pick something that's a little adjacent to your personality still. And hey, you want a hot dog? I'm like, no.
He's like, yeah, my food sucks at my food truck. We just reheat frozen shit. That's why I can't cook for you. It's like, why did you choose this?
Honestly, though, that isn't the worst lie. That does sound like a real. That sounds like a real hot dog truck to me.
Fair.
I think that lying about your career is one of those things. Like, yes, the show loves people that want to lie about their career, but it's typically only cops and lawyers. So I think it's hilarious that the house just doesn't think anybody's a chef this year. I didn't realize that chef was the big taboo job that people think you're lying about.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of the few things that like you can prove. Like if you say you're a cook, a chef, you have a restaurant, like you can cook in the house. And so like there's a clear test to your merit.
But also, didn't Xavier say, or was it Joseph from 24? But there was someone who was like a lawyer that was like, yeah, I'm a physical trainer. Or no, it was Xavier was a bartender and he couldn't make a freaking drink.
Yeah.
So I'm like, why? So they knew he wasn't a bartender. Sometimes it doesn't matter at the end of the day. I think lying about your career. I think it's just really awkward when you do get caught.
Yep. I think the best way to lie about your career is to make it something really specific and boring. Because nobody ever suspects like the accountant of lying about their job. You know what I mean?
Well, no, I would be like, look, I'm terrible at my taxes. Please explain accounting. I am all ears.
Well, you have to do some research. If you're gonna,
I'd hope so. Well, Xavier didn't learn how to make a cocktail. I think I'm gonna lie and say I'm not a drag queen. I think that's gonna be my twist. I'm not a drag queen. So I don't want the girls thinking that I'm better at makeup than them. That sounds intimidating. I don't want the boys thinking that I'm gonna work with the girls. And then I'm gonna show up on finale night just looking sickening. Make them eat it.
All right.
I don't think it matters.
It was quite a day. There's honestly still a lot of fallout to come. I think there's a lot of like rebuilding and restructuring and a lot of relationships that are still in flux at the moment. So I would expect today to still be fairly important to track. But that was the day. I mean, there was a lot that went down. Anything else that you wanted to bring up, Sugar Free?
Why did T'kor put the gummy worms in a Ziploc bag and put them in the spatula drawer? I love that didn't come up not just once, but that was like, it happened at one point during the day and Cedric got upset about it. And then like, as I'm like setting up all my makeup for this morning to get ready, I just hear him complain in the HOH at like 2 a.m. about it again. And just thought that was hysterical. That's the kind of little thing. I don't know. There was a lot of fun little things that happened today also that we didn't get to talk about. Like earlier when Tucker was confronting Rubina before the veto ceremony, Tucker was like, yeah, you thought I was asleep, but I wasn't. Yeah. I saw you, and you looked over and you pointed and you rolled your eyes and I saw everything.
Tucker very much is like he feels this, and we already knew this, but like, if he thinks a thing is true, he will make up reasons for why he knows it's a fact. So like, I know you did this because I was fake sleeping and I heard you. And also 3 different people told me about it. And then like, when he was confronting Cedric and Cedric was like, no, I'm open about this. He was like, but 3 different people told me about it.
3. It was always 3. And
Always
Rubina
3.
was like, Rubina was like, well, I guess those 3 people just want you to hate me. And it made me realize, I think, okay, this is who I think the 3 people are. It's Leah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's 2 of the fishies.
The fish speak to him. There was another fun moment where I think it was right after Brooklyn confronted Kenny, that like they were all kind of like hovering around the door to the kitchen from the backyard to try to listen in. And then at one point, like T'kor walked out and Rubina's like tactical rolling away. And then later, like Quinn goes in to grab a water, like a bottle or something, like a cup. And then as they're like hovering around the door, he sprints out like, ah! Because there were like, according to him, like 200 ants in the cup. And he was freaking out about it.
Yes, I was so overwhelmed with so much information yesterday. But at the end of the day, I haven't had a day in a while where I had the feeds on all day and was constantly just like listening intently on game talking or just cracking up at this cast being absolute fools and morons. Good job casting. You really found a very eclectic group where even the people that are floating are power floating. So it doesn't feel like anyone's really dragging their feet behind except for Kenny. And even then, he entertains me, so I'm not even that mad about it. I don't have it. I feel like last year I had people that I like didn't root for, or there was just one person who creeped me out so much, who might have given people serial killer vibes, some would say, that just overstayed his welcomed and soured it. And so, you know what? I don't feel any sour notes yet from this cast. I don't really see any sort of combination coming of eliminations where I feel like there's going to be a true dud left that's going to like make me cringe and be furious that they're still in the house. So excited to see where the rest of the season goes. I hope that T'kor can stay a little bit longer for more chaos, because I do think once he goes home, we are going to get another dry spell. Every week is a reaction to the week before, and crazy is usually followed by more crazy.
Yes. Well, the house guests will continue to do their best to prevent me from watching climbing at the Olympics. But in the meantime, I will be back tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Eastern to update you on everything that happens today on the Big Brother 26 live feeds. Again, I think there's still more to like figure out in terms of where things are going to stand given everything that happened. So make sure you tune in tomorrow morning. But we will also be live tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern for the roundtable. Quite an update, perhaps, for the ratings. So stay tuned for that. And of course, a lot to talk about in terms of strategy and like analyzing what these people are doing. So should be a lively roundtable tonight. I will send out the survey if you want to rate the players yourself. You can find that over on Twitter when I finish it and tweet it out after this podcast. You can also check out our getaway coverage. The getaway finale will be dropping tomorrow. And it's been a very fun show. I highly recommend checking it out over on Nebula. It's one of those shows where they're tricking the entire cast into thinking that they're all the mole, essentially. And the finale is the grand reveal. So looking forward to it. And then, of course, House of the Dragon finale aired. We're going to be doing more coverage for that, the book club, and then maybe some extra stuff. So stay tuned for that. We got the Tastemakers dropping today. We talked about HBO's new lineup and some more stuff in the TV and film realm. And Twitch. I was live all day yesterday. Wasn't there the whole time, but I was checking in. It was a lot of fun. So make sure you come and hang out with me over on Twitch. Sugar Free, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at sugarfree_queen. Instagram and TikTok, it is Sugarfree the Queen. I'm very new to Twitter. It'll say I've been on since 2021. That does not mean I actively tweet or open the account. that much, but I've been getting into it, especially after this whole thing has happened for me. Coming on BB Millionaire, I had literally no expectations for what could happen afterwards. And the fact that I'm sitting here with you, Taran, after the most chaotic day of the season so far, a legendary day. This will be a remembered day for sure. I feel so blessed. Thank you so much. Please, but anyways, yes, please follow me on Twitter. I need Twitter followers. I need people to tweet at. You can check out me, and I will also say, if you are watching or if you're listening, you cannot see that I am rocking, of course, a Julie Chen bob, because I thought there was no other appropriate wig to wear than a Julie Chen bob. That is juliechenbob.com. She should sell them. I really think she should.
Yeah. Well, Sugar, thank you so much for joining. We really threw you into the deep end here, and I think you handled yourself very well. So thank you so much. Make sure you all give Sugar Free her props here on her very first update. And that is what we have for you. Thank you all so much for joining us here today, and I will see all of you